Hey, this is Sam Snyder, and for my Pecha presentation, I'm going to talk about why pro wrestling is art. I've got a lot of stuff I want to talk about. I want to talk about why pro wrestlers are artists and everyone else that's an artist when it comes to wrestling. I want to talk about why bad wrestling is still art, and I'm going to talk about some great wrestling to show off why it really can be high art, in my opinion. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is that wrestling is fake. It's fiction. I know this, and all other wrestling fans know this. But anytime these guys take a hit or a bump, as they call it when they hit the mat, or bleed or anything, they're getting hurt. They know how to fall, it doesn't hurt that bad, but they're still getting hurt. Anytime they're bleeding, it's because they have cut their forehead or somewhere else on themselves to make themselves bleed. They train so that stuff like this that happened to Bob Holly, where he gashed his back open going through a table, doesn't happen. They train for years and have to become masters of their craft so that this doesn't happen. When you're in the ring, if someone's hurt, it's because they or their opponent messed up. You've got guys that can power through that pain, though. These guys are crazy tough. You've got guys like Bret Hart, who cracked his sternum and finished a match. You've got guys like Triple H here, who ripped his quad during a match and kept going. And the end of that match had him being put in the walls of Jericho right here. Excuse me. That where he was basically just getting his quad torqued on and did it anyway. I can't imagine how much that hurt. These guys train for years to take moves like this, like a jackknife powerbomb or a tombstone pile driver. They train so that they can take these hits that could, if you do it wrong, kill you or paralyze you or give you a concussion of some sort. I don't see how these guys aren't artists and they're not all dead. So what is their art? I call it theater. Wrestling is theater at its most basic form, to quote that great documentary Beyond the Mat. It is, even if it's just two guys in a ring, there is so much going on and there's so much to it. These guys are some of the best artists in the world, in my opinion. They are over-the-top characters. Yes, you got guys like the Road Warriors, guys like The Undertaker or The Rock. We love them because they're over-the-top characters. It's like they just jumped right off a comic book panel into the screen. And they'll be fighting over ludicrous things. But it doesn't really matter. They're just telling stories in the ring as their characters. And there's guys that can do amazing things in the ring. Guys like Shawn Michaels over there on the left, Kurt Angle in the middle, Olympic gold medalist, and Bret Hart, guys that can just go and go and go in the ring. You could throw these guys in the ring with a pool noodle, and that pool noodle would look like the greatest wrestler you've ever seen. You got guys who can talk forever, and you just want to listen to everything they say. Guys like Ric Flair, Roddy Piper, Chris Jericho. These guys who are so charismatic, they could get in that ring and read a phone book, and everybody in that arena, everybody watching at home, would just be on the edge of their seat, wanting to know everything they say and not wanting to miss a moment of it. You've got the commentators, guys like Jim Ross, Jerry Lawler, Joey Styles, guys that add to that story in the ring. It's not required, but it can add to the art that is wrestling, because they'll paint a picture with their words and tell you remind you what's on the line. That it helps you pretend that this is a real sport, it's a real fight. This guy's commentating. Jim Ross could make a snail race look or sound incredibly intense. You got the high-end production values of stuff like WrestleMania or WWE productions, where they've got pyro and lights, and guys have their own entrance music that tells you about them and what's going on before they even get in the ring. It all adds up to the total product and art that is wrestling. Bad wrestling, like most other bad art, it can still be incredibly entertaining. You've got The Ultimate Warrior with his crazy rantings and ramblings. You got this WWE Heroes comic book that I included in here because it's ludicrous. It has Triple H, Undertaker, and John Cena on the cover fighting zombies and cat people. I had to buy it for that cover. You have the time David Arquette was World Heavyweight Champion. You have the Shockmaster, who was that guy with a chrome Stormtrooper helmet. RoboCop has done some wrestling things. That was horrible. You have stuff like this Little People's Court skit that was disturbingly bad. Or the time Randy Orton tried to kill John Cena with the pyro. Honestly, there should have been repercussions of that. There never were. That was kind of bad storytelling. Bad wrestling is so entertaining, there's whole shows devoted to it. You've got stuff like $5 Wrestling, where these guys do Mystery Science Theater style commentary over it, and it's hilarious. You've got stuff like Botchamania, which is just a collection of horrible wrestling, and it's hilarious to watch those little joke vignettes. I'm serious, go look into it. It's great. If you ever want to laugh, it's a great way to get into wrestling. Wrestling, when it's great, has a lot to do with kayfabe. Kayfabe is kind of like continuity in wrestling. It's keeping wrestling real. It's acting like it's real. Wrestlers never break character. Nobody really knows where the term came from. It originated back in the carny days of wrestling, where wrestling started. But one of the first real moments that broke kayfabe and was crazy was the Montreal Screwjob, where in real life Bret Hart was the WWF champion and was going to go to a different company. He was lied to and told he was going to win his last match and go out on top. In that match, they screwed him out of it and rang the bell, even though he didn't give up. It doesn't. I know it's not a real fight, but they screwed him out of it. He thought he was going to win. Bret freaked out. He started tearing things up. He punched out Vince McMahon. No one knew if it was real or not. You have the Summer of Punk storyline from this year where CM Punk was acting like he was going off record, breaking the fourth wall, talking to people. On his last night in the company, he had a title shot, won, grabbed the belt, and ran out of the building. His contract was expired, but he was the champion. It was amazing storytelling. The whole place was going crazy. You have the legendary NWO angle that WCW did where Hulk Hogan turned heel. And him and the other members of the NWO started trying to take over WCW. You can see when Hulk Hogan turned heel as a bad guy, he literally started getting pelted with garbage. The fans were so enraged. People buy into this storyline so much. I mean, you have stuff like Hell in a Cell, where The Undertaker and Mankind started their match on top of the 16-foot cage, and Undertaker threw Mankind off 16 feet to the floor. And they're carting Mankind out like he's dead, but he gets back up and he climbs back up to keep on fighting. But not just that, but with a smile on his face. I mean, these guys are real-life superheroes, if there ever were some. You have what many people consider the best match of all time, Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker at WrestleMania 26, where these two guys who are just masters of their craft got in that ring and put on a show that left a crowd of 72,000 people on their feet the entire match, chanting and crying and applauding. And if something can do that, if something can leave 72,000 people on their feet, breathless, that is art.